And then for the other overhead, it is 25% times $280,000. So we arrive at a total of $326,000. And then to arrive at the activity rate, we have to divide the total cost by the budgeted activity, which is already stated in the problem. And we can see from this table, it's 32,000 activities. So the rate for the first cost pool is $10.2 per activities, and the activity is direct manufacturing labor hours. So we can say that the rate is 10.2 for each direct manufacturing labor hours. And then we do the same thing for each of the cost pool. There are 3 other cost pools. For example, for the other processing, we do the same thing. We calculate the percentage times each of the costs, and then we arrive at the total cost. We divide that by the number of activities, so we can get the activity rate. And then after finishing the rate for each of the cost pool, we can move on to the problem 2, which is calculating the cost of the order. And like the previous problems, total cost of a product consists of 3 main costs, which the first one is direct material cost, direct manufacturing labor cost, and the last one is overhead cost. And in this case, the direct material cost and the direct manufacturing labor cost for the order is already stated in the problem. The DM cost is $5.5 thousand. Direct manufacturing cost is 100 hour times the rate, and the rate is $25 per hour. And then the last one is overhead. We have to calculate it one by one. For the direct manufacturing labor, as we previously calculate, the rate is 10.2 per direct manufacturing labor hours. So the way to calculate it is 10.2 times 100, and order processing, the rate is 680 times the number of customer order, which is 4 plus 2, 6. So it's $4,000, and design support is 116.8 times the custom design hours. And since the design hours for each product is different, we have to calculate it for each of the product. So it's 116.8 times 4 times 13 plus 2 times 8. And then the last one is other costs, which is 5.08 times direct manufacturing labor hour as its activity base, which is the DML hours. So it's 5.08 times 100. So we got the total overhead cost for this customer order. It's $13,000, and then the total cost, we have to sum up all the direct materials, direct manufacturing labor, and the total overhead. So we arrive at the total cost of $21,550. And then for the third problem, the question is, how does activity-based costing enhance Marshall Devices' ability to price its order? Suppose Marshall's devices use a traditional costing system to allocate all overhead costs to orders on the basis of direct manufacturing labor hours. How might this have affected Marshall Devices' pricing decisions? So the answer is, compared to the traditional method, ABC costing enables Marshall to do 2 things compared to the traditional, which is the first one is it enables Marshall to allocate overhead costs to each of the cost pool, and in addition, it also enables Marshall to assign cost to each product according to each of the cost pool rate. As we can see here, each cost pool can have different activity base. So, and then the second conclusion is how it affects the pricing. Assuming that complex and simple design requires the same amount of direct manufacturing labor hours, then the complex design will then be underpriced because the price does not reflect the extra time required to design the complex design. So we can see here that the complex design requires $13 design hours per unit. Meanwhile, the simple design only requires 8 design hours per unit, and it will not be reflected if you use the traditional method. And then the last question is, when designing its activity-based costing system, Marshall uses time-driven activity-based costing. What does this approach allow Marshall to do? How would the cost order have been different if Marshall has used the number of customer design rather than the number of custom design hours? Which cost driver do you prefer for design support? So, of course, since the design hour is more appropriate and it is more accurate, then the design hour is more preferable compared to the number of design. This is due to different design may require different amount of design hours, hence the number of design is not reflective of the design of hours needed and also amount paid to the design employee. So, since we usually pay the design employee based on the hours spent, then the design hours is a more appropriate and a more preferable base to allocate the cost design. So that is all for our assisting class today. Thank you so much for your attention and see you next time.